Our approach is to build partnerships and work with leaders across the education sector. And I'm honored today to be joined in this webinar by three remarkable leaders who have served the advancement of inclusive education from various perspectives. We're joined today with the Honorable Jody Carr, Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development from the province of New Brunswick. Jody has been an MLA since 1999 and previously served as Minister of Post-Secondary Education and Training in New Brunswick. He has two school-aged daughters, and so brings that experience as well to our discussion today. Calvin Fraser is the Secretary General of the Canadian Teachers Federation. He previously worked for the Alberta Teachers Association and is a former teacher and school administrator, and will be bringing his perspectives on how to advance inclusive education, primarily from the perspective of teachers. We're also joined in our discussion this morning and this afternoon with Bendina Miller, who is a recently retired school superintendent in British Columbia. She has worked in a variety of roles in education in her career in Canada, and she is currently president of the Canadian Association for Community Living, and will share her perspectives as a teacher, but also as a senior administrator. By way of introduction to today's webinar discussion, I want to let you know that our three speakers will share their perspectives on how to advance inclusive education and build leadership for inclusion. Each will speak for 12 to 15 minutes, and then we will open it up for comments and questions from our participants. And I understand we have quite a number of participants from across the country, so we may not be able to take all your questions, but please send them in by email, and we'll take as many as we can, and a broad selection of the questions that you're raising. I guess at the outset, I want to recognize that February is Inclusive Education Month in Canada, launched by the Canadian Association for Community Living in partnership with our provincial territorial associations a few years back. We launched Inclusive Education Month after a national summit on inclusive education that was co-sponsored actually with the Canadian Teachers Federation. And we had partnership from governments and parent and school associations from across the country in that summit. And it was a time where we recognized that we had made significant advances in achieving the goal of inclusive education, by which we mean inclusion of students with the full range of abilities in regular classrooms, securing a quality education in their neighborhood school. We come at this from the perspective of students with intellectual disabilities. And while we have made significant advances, and we'll hear about some of those today from all of our speakers, we also know that we have a long way to go. The reality is that only just over 40% of students in K-12 are fully included in regular education. That isn't to say that we don't have some significant examples of good policy, practice, and legislation in this country that demonstrate how inclusion can happen. But it's clear that we haven't scaled it up to make this possible for all students and all learners. Part of the challenge may be that we've only, by the account of a national survey done about 4 years ago, we only have just over 30% of Canadians fully supportive of inclusive education. We don't yet have broad public support. Maybe it's because we haven't been able to share the examples widely enough, or in a way that people can fully grasp what it means to include all students with the range of abilities and gifts in the classroom. But that's one of the main challenges we face. We've got teachers who are more and more committed if we look at surveys of teachers, to the value of inclusion. We've got great examples. So part of our discussion today is how do we take it the next step? Given the knowledge that we have and the examples that we have, how do we take it the next step? How do we scale up inclusive education so it becomes the operating practice and the working knowledge of schools and school districts and teachers and principals across this country? So with those opening remarks, I'm pleased to introduce to you again Honorable Jody Carr, Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development in New Brunswick, who will share with us his mandate to enhance and improve education, inclusive education, in the province of New Brunswick. Over to you, Minister Carr.